cold blood by an angel in blue jeans. Whoa, whoa, I hear voices calling all around. I keep falling down. I think my heart could come right out of me. I see a million different ways to never leave this maze alive. How soon do we forget how we felt, dealing with emotions that never left, playing with the hand that we were dealt in this game. Maybe I'm the sinner and you're the saint. Gotta stop pretending while we ain't, while we pointing fingers anyway, we're the same. Break up, make up, total waste of time. Can we please make up our minds and stop acting like we're blind? Cause if the water dries up and the moon stops shining, stars fall and the world goes blind, boy, you know I'll be saving my love for you, for you. Cause you're the best mistake I've ever made. But we hold on, hold on. There's no pot of gold in the rainbows we chase. But we hold on, yeah. I'll be saving my love for you, for you.
Hello and welcome, intermediate students, to another intermediate lesson at learnpianolive.com. This is an intermediate lesson, so the assumption is that you can probably play a couple songs at least well enough to impress a couple friends. You might have some basic understanding of music theory or something, but you really haven't had any formal training. So if that's you, you're in the right place. If you feel, throughout this lesson like it's way too advanced, you might want to go back and check out yesterday's lesson. It's in the archives, the beginner's version of this lesson. That might answer a lot of your questions, but feel free to ask away, ask any questions. This is about you and me, so you got to ask questions so I know, how to help you best. And there's a couple other things I want to talk to you too about before this countdown clock hits 0. All right, first and most important, ask a lot of questions. The way that you're gonna do that is, there's a couple different ways. You can jump in the chat room and talk with the other students who are logged in at the same time. I'll be watching the chat room too. You can ask your questions there. Or if it's a question that's just for me, a question about the lesson, especially if you know it's one that's gonna fit best at the question and answer time at the end, then you can just put your name and your question in the box below this video, click submit, and then I will get that. Now, if you're already in the archives, if you're watching this not live, but you're watching this in the archives, then make sure at the end of the lesson you click on the survey button. You don't have to fill out the entire survey. If you want to, I'd love your feedback, but really the best part of that is that you can put your question in there, and then when you click submit, then I will get all of your questions. I'll make sure that you get them answered, whether you're in the archives or you're live. Right next to this video, there should be a PDF button and an MP3 button. Now, you don't really need those till after the lesson because I'm going to be showing you on screen the PDF and showing you how to use it. And I'll play the MP3 during the lesson too, so you know at the end of the lesson how you're going to use that. Some people, though, like to print out the PDF ahead of time, so as I'm making notes on my version, they can make the same notes on their version, but it works either way. All right, this is perhaps the most important part. You need to leave the lesson when you feel like you're sufficiently challenged. So, I'm teaching these lessons, 12 to 15 lessons a month. Normally in traditional lessons, you're getting like a lesson every other week or so. So this is just way too much for you to take in. So, the goal is for you to get some little nugget of something that you can really practice on, really work on. Once you feel like you have that, then you really don't need anything else from me. Go practice. That's where this stuff is really gonna happen. You're not going to get through this lesson and be able to play something really well. You're going to get through this lesson and have the information that you need to practice more effectively. That's really the goal here. So don't feel bad about taking off early. If you feel like halfway through the lesson you got as much as you can take in at that time, then go practice that thing, and then come back whenever you've got that thing down, or you're bored with it, or you just want to check out the next topic. Don't forget also that you've got the archives too. So if you want to see one little thing, just repeat it over and over and over. Just give me, hopefully within 24 hours after the lesson, this thing will be up in the archive, so you can just go back and watch it over and over and over and over and just get that little segment down. All right, so to be totally honest with you, today is my least favorite topic. Out of the 8 sectors of musicianship that are out there, I'd rather focus on any of them than literacy. But that's what we're doing, because literacy, as it turns out, is extremely important. So I have found a place in my heart to love this topic, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit more about how you can become more literate, so you can have someone just put sheet music down in front of you, say ready, set, play, and you'll be able to read that with greater and greater accuracy. I'm ready. I'm ready. Are you ready? Let's go. At the beginning does a terrible job of describing what literacy is. So we're talking about how to read and write music. So a lot of adults think they're going to love this topic because you feel like reading music is going to be this massive skill that helps you to quote unquote play music. But reading and writing music only overlaps playing music as much as reading and writing a language overlaps telling a good story. So they're not really the same skill, even though there is some overlap in the topic. It's just, it's not as much as some people would expect. So I know for some of you, this is your goal. Finally, we're doing this, something that has to do with music, when the truth is, this may not be as related to becoming a great pianist as you think, but it is extremely important because there's obviously a ton of music out there, and if you don't have some of these skills down, then yeah, you're missing out on a lot. Cool. So then yesterday, we had lots of questions about stuff that was outside of the topic, and I showed self-restraint for one time and didn't answer those questions, but that means we got a lot to get through today. Also, I'm waiting for the call from my wife saying that it is time to go in and have that baby. So if I have to leave you immediately, then hopefully everything's cool. Everything's great. But today might be the day in the middle of the lesson. Just got that definitely in the back of my mind. So back, the very front of my mind. This lesson that I'm doing right here, being in this moment and saying these words out of my mouth, that's kind of in the back of my mind. The front of my mind is definitely the baby. Anyway, we'll try to get through some of this stuff and maybe learn something along the way. So first we're going to talk about the bass clef, because yesterday we talked about the treble clef. Some requests about how to write the treble clef. So let me first show you that before we go into what we're supposed to talk about today. The treble clef is just going to be this right here. We're going to make a dot down below here, and then off the right side of that, as if we were drawing a quarter note, we're just going to go straight up and land up above the treble clef. Cool. So it's like just a big, huge quarter note so far. Then we're going to take that one. We want to make an intersection right there. We want to make an intersection right there, and then make an intersection right there. So in that order too. So going from the top, we're going to try to come from here down and hit that. Cool. Then we're down the other side and hit that. And then we're going to come up and hit that one before we curl around and end right around there. It should, if you do it correctly, make kind of a target right there on that second line up. That target is on the line that is G in the treble clef, which is why the treble clef is also known as the G clef, because that one just kind of like circles around there, as well as it's been pointed out to me that for some people that looks like a G, and for other people they look at me like I'm crazy when I say that. So anyway, I don't know, maybe. So again, that is a dot at the bottom. We go all the way to the top, come down, around, and like that. That is your treble clef. Those are all the key points. Make sure that this is above the treble clef. Make sure that dot is down below. And then you got to hit that line, and then that line, and then that line. And those are kind of the key points. So actually, it's pretty much every line here is important, except for this one. That's the only line that doesn't really go into making the treble clef. Cool. Then if we scoot over, we need to make the bass clef, because that's what we're supposed to talk about today. So the bass clef is just going to be a dot right there. You know what? Hang on. This is going to get confusing if I do that, because we got to put the bass clef down below the treble clef. So if I shrink all this down and I put a line here, now these two together, the treble clef and what's about to become the bass clef, is called the grand staff. And usually there's a little brace right there off to the side saying, hey, these two guys go together. Down here on the bottom, we'll have all the low notes, and up here we'll have all the high notes. When I say low notes, I mean any notes down below middle C. So all these guys down here. And then the treble clef is mostly going to be graphing all of the notes from middle C on up. So pretty much right hand and left hand, even though that's not what it is. If your right hand is on the right side of your body and you're one of those people where the left hand is on the left side of your body, then it's pretty much right hand and left hand, because your nose is usually going to be pretty much in line with middle C. Okay, but it's, again, like we said yesterday, it's not middle C because it's in the middle of the piano. It's middle C because it's in the middle between the treble clef and the bass clef. Let's get into that in just a second. First, let's draw this bass clef. So the bass clef, and again, this stuff is all stuff that you're going to be already experiencing if you are in Clopple Academy. So if you're doing that stuff, it's free for all subscribers. Then you don't need any of this necessarily, although it might be a good refresher. I don't know, whatever. We don't go into drawing these things, so maybe that's kind of the more fun part here. So we need that dot on that second line down. And that line right there, as it turns out, in the bass clef is an F. This F right here, the F that is below middle C. So that's the C, middle C, that's an F. And that is why the bass clef is also known as the F clef. One other thing that makes it the F clef in a second. The fact that if we draw it, it looks like a C. Never mind. That is not why it's called the F clef. It looks like a backwards C or a heart, maybe. I drew mine kind of fat. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There we go. Kind of like that-ish. Man, that one's not very pretty either. Anyway, the kind of C-ish shape there. And then you want to put dots on both sides of that, that F line. So the whole thing kind of triangulates on that one line right there. That is the F line, which is why the bass clef is called the F clef. There we go. Something like that. That's the one. That's the bass clef, and that means all the notes down below middle C. Cool. So then we have, again, the high notes for the treble clef, the low notes for the bass clef, and then we've got this middle C. Now, technically, this middle C should be perfectly in between these two. Let me show you what that would look like here. We'll go to the Clapple Academy or Kids Learn Piano Live level 3 version here. So the note middle C is on the ledger line that's down below the treble clef and up above the bass clef. And when this program loads, I will show you what those look like here. All right, cool. You can see that, right? Yes. Fantastic. So middle C would be right there. If I zoom in a little bit. Here we go. This is finale, because I know you're going to ask. And no, I do not have any affiliation with Finale, and I think that there's so many things about their program that really, really stink. So I would not recommend it, but it was one of those deals where anyway, you don't care. It's a terrible program that I hate and that I use constantly. So that's a middle C in the treble clef, and that's a middle C in the bass clef. Those are the exact same note. They're this note right here. Both of those are. But there's a big old space, so it looks like one is way higher than the other. That's because it's supposed to be like this right here. If we took that guy and sneaked it up like that, that would be our middle C right there. Now you can see beautifully that that's a middle C. If we make that like a half note, there we go. Oh, now you're going to be like that to me, aren't you? There we go. Cool. So those are both middle Cs. If you want to go up higher in the treble clef, then you could go up like that. If you want to go down lower in the bass clef, you could go down like that. And then even further. Let's go down even further. That'll be fun. Bam, bam. Yes. So these are all the notes from the treble clef and the bass clef. You can see that those middle Cs are lined up. They actually look like the same note now. This is the way that it should be. But as far as I can tell, the problem with this is there's no room for the lyrics. And those singers messing up our music one more time would like to have their lyrics in between the treble clef and the bass clef. So all we've done is we've taken that middle C that was perfectly in between the treble clef. Treble clef bottom line is right there. Bass clef top line right there. We put one line in the middle. It's in the middle between the treble clef and the bass clef. It's middle C. Everything is beautiful. And then the singers come along and say, but we would really like it if we could put our lyrics right in the middle there. So, as always, we give them what they want. I don't really hate singers that much, but sometimes a little. So the words go here, and then we spread out our treble clef and our bass clef so that we can have room for those words. And there you go. That's where words are. So treble clef, bass clef, middle C. That's how all of that relates. So it is entirely possible that you would have like this note right here, which is an E and should technically be in the treble clef. You could have that in the bass clef if you put the note like right there. There we go. So that one right there would be an E. Let's get the words out of the way. Actually, that's a great idea. Let's get the words out of the way. Cool. So now the note in the treble clef, this note right here, is actually this note right here in the treble clef. And then this note over here, the one that's lower in the bass clef, is actually this note right here. It's actually higher than the one in the treble clef. Cool. So maybe I've made all this more confusing than it needed to be, but these were all questions that were asked other places. So this looks like the bass clef note is lower than the treble clef note, but in reality, it's actually above. I hope that makes some sense. If not, then please ask your questions. And if you were one of the people who had this question originally, then let me know if I've answered your question or not. But that's how all of that goes. Back to the music that you have. We've got the bass clef. Now, let's, you already know what the notes are. So if I put a note right there, then you know that's an F. It's that F specifically has to be the F that is below middle C. It's middle C. Has to be that one exactly and no other F. Cool. Then we can use all the same tricks from yesterday, all that intervallic stuff that we were doing where you've got like 2 notes down, you're just gonna go 2 notes down. We do have the same stupid acronyms for the bass clef like I was alluding to. So we have A, C, E, G. Now, it would be great if we started down here, and now this, once again, is face. If you start on the space below the bass clef, so you've got face starting on the treble clef right here, F, A, C, E, and then on the bass clef, you would have, man, this is kind of laggy. I'm not really happy with that. We'd have face and then G at the end, so face, G. But anyway, we don't have that. Instead, what we have is an A and a C and an E and a G, which is almost ace, but then we have the same problem, ace, G. So it can't just be a word, so now we have to go like all cows eat grass, or all cars eat gas, which doesn't really make any sense. But none of this does to me, unless it helps you, then good for you. And then down below that we have G, B, D, F, A, which is good boys do fine always. Good bands deserve fudge always, or any other thing that you could come up that would be equally as good as any of the ones that I've heard. But those are the lines and the spaces of the bass clef. And then good luck trying to remember which is which. Like, really, I don't have any advice for you because it's confusing for me. So if it's confusing for you, then we're both out of luck. Which one? Is this the GBDF? Is this the EC? What's it? EG? Something about cows. No. This one spells a word. Is it face? Where's the... I don't know. Okay. So, I would just recommend memorizing a note. Probably the 2 that I would start with. I said a note and then I said 2. I know. That one right there, that one's going to be important. That's C, especially in like all of your beginner books, even adults beginner books, and in Clopple Academy, you're going to be seeing a lot of those because it's the C that's below middle C, because middle C would be right here. And F, as you already know, is right there. So you've already got a couple of notes just memorized automatically just from drawing the thing. And then we've got the C right there, and then we've got G down below there. Cool. So you've got the G down there. That one's going to be that line. And then I think if you have those, goodness, you've got a lot of notes in the bass clef. And you should be able to find pretty much anything from there. Just start with this C. You're going to accidentally memorize that F if you write out the bass clef very much. And then this C is going to pop up a billion jillion times. So those are kind of automatic. So you've already got 3 notes. Then if you remember this bottom one is G, I think you should be fine. And you can ignore all of the boys and bands and fudge and cars and cows and stuff. I don't know, or maybe not. Whatevs. Then one more question before we get to the rhythm section today is the sharps and the flats. So if you want to put a sharp on a note or a flat on a note, first just draw the letter where it's supposed to be. So let's say, and I'll take this out of our way. There we go. Let's say you want to make an E flat. Let's keep this in the bass clef. Let's make this E flat right here. Cool, so if we want to make that E flat, again, this is an F right here. So we could just go 1 down from F and we would land on that one. Or you might know that this is a C and you could go a skip up from C. So this note currently, as it is written right now, is just a regular old E. So we would play that one right there. But if we want this to be flat, then we have to draw a flat sign. We have to draw it very specifically so that the open part of the flat sign is on the space that goes with the note. So that is now an E flat. If you just draw a flat anywhere over here, like flat sign, like that kind of looks like it's on the line there. It kind of looks like it's on the space, or some people like draw it like above it, like that, like a flat sign like right there because they're trying to like stay out of the way of the note or whatever. Then that's going to be, I mean, anyone who knows how to play is going to know what it was, but they're going to know also that whoever wrote it didn't know how to do it. So the circle-y part, the open part of the flat has to go on the same line or space as the note. So if you want to make like a B flat, like this one down here, okay, now we're off the charts. This one right here we said was a C. That second space up is a C. You're going to see a billion trillion of those. So we would put it on one note below the C. That's B. And then again, we want the open part of the flat symbol to be on that same line. So we're going to draw our line perhaps first, and then just like that. So the line is cutting right through the middle of the flat part in the same way that it's cutting right through the middle of the note. Again, the stems don't matter. This right here, that can go over all the lines and spaces. This stem right over here, that can go over all the, I don't think it's called a stem. It can go over all the lines and spaces. But the line cutting through the middle has to cut through the middle of both the flat and the note. Same thing's going to do with sharps. Sharps are a little bit trickier because sharps have that's the hashtag symbol. We call sharp in music. It was a sharp before it was a hashtag, but whatever. So that's your G right there. And if we want to make that a G sharp, we just got to make sure that the middle of the tic-tac-toe symbol, hashtag sharp, is also on that same space. If we wanted a D sharp, like that one right there, we'd have to make sure that the tic-tac-toe, the open part right there, cuts right through the middle of both of those. So you should be able to tell then. And that's also, by the way, how you tell, like if you're looking at a key, and this is not part of today's lesson. This is just a little bonus thing here. When you're looking at the keys, like sometimes you'll run into a song where at the very beginning of it, like it'll have, for example, that right there. And so if you have these memorized, all the key symbols and stuff from the Circle of Fifths lessons, then you'll know that's the key of E flat, which has B flat, E flat, and A flat in it. So the key of E flat would be... That was terrible fingering. Don't follow that fingering. There we go. So the key of E flat has 3 flats in it, and so just seeing that, like 3 flats, bam, I know it's the key of E flat, just because the key of that's what that represents. It's shorthand. It's not shorthand. It's way longer. You could have just written E flat, but it's the secret musician's dorky way of saying E flat. But also, those flats are actually on the lines and spaces that go with the accompanying flats. So a lot of people just memorize, oh, I see 3 flat signs. I know that I'm in the key of E flat, and that has E flat, A flat, and B flat. But that actually is the B line, so it's B flat. That actually is the E space right there, and that actually is the A space. So they not only do they indicate what key you're in, but they also tell you which flats or sharps are in those keys. Cool. That's a lot of material already, and I am not seeing very many questions, which means I'm just going to keep going. Cool. Yes. All right. So then the rhythms here, just really briefly, the ones that don't have any other markings, it's just a plain old whole donut right there. That's called a whole note. And that is worth 4 beats. So when you see one of those, you're just going to play it and hang on to it for 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. The more stuff you add to a note, the faster it goes. So, next measure. If we go, I'll just put a line here. Next measure, if we have one of those, but it has a line on it, a stem, that actually is called a stem, then that's going to be a half note, because it's got slightly more stuff on it. That's not why it's called half. But we know that it's a half note because it has slightly more stuff on it. It kind of looks like a whole note, but it's got a stem. That is worth 2. It's worth half as much as a whole note. But a whole note's worth 4. I know. You want it to be called a 4 note, and you want the half note to be instead be called a 2 note. I know. It's not for good reason that we won't learn about until much later. But anyway, the half note's worth half as much as the whole note. And so it'd be 1, 2, and then we'd still have 2 beats left over here, so we'd have to have something else to take that space. So we'd count like 1, 2, and then we'd count another 2 beats over here that we would say 3, 4. So each of those would be worth 2 counts, and that's still behind. Really? Come on, buddy. Try. There we go. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, just one more of these. Quarter notes are going to be worth 1 beat each, and just like before, we're just going to add a little bit more to a note that we already had. We had half notes right there, so a half note looked like that. It was a circle with a line. There we go. And so now if we fill that in, that's just slightly more decoration to the same exact note. And so now this thing is just, it's a quarter note. It's worth a quarter of a whole note. It's worth one beat. So that would just be one. And then if we had like 3 more of them, then we would have a full measure. All of those filled in. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so now we could play 1, 2, 3, 4. The real challenge in all this is just trying to play all of them without having any gaps in between. So commonly I would see something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Which totally doesn't work. That's why you buy a metronome. 1, 2. That's pretty fast. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that'd be the whole thing. And yes, I know there are questions about the metronome that I have not answered yet. We're going to just be doing a whole entire lesson on metronomes instead of trying to answer all of those here because they were just growing and growing and growing. So that lesson will be coming out soon, hopefully. Again, baby, still front of the mind. So as soon as that is all subsided, we'll get that metronome lesson out. So that's how we're going to do the rhythms. We've got sharps, we've got flats, we've got how to draw the treble clef, the bass clef. We talked about the grand staff. I guess I'm doing the wrap up right now, aren't I? This is the wrap up then. It's official. Talked about the grand staff, how to draw the treble clef, the bass clef. We talked about the lines and spaces of the bass clef, which I think is a bunch of baloney. But, you know, if it helps you, it helps you. So it doesn't matter what I think is baloney. And then we talked about how the flats of a key signature, like this one here, are actually on the lines and spaces of the flats and sharps that are supposed to be there, and talked about quarter notes and half notes and whole notes and their values, the importance of going smoothly through all of your rhythms. We talked about how to draw the flats and the sharps on the lines and spaces, and talked about stems, and briefly reviewed a little bit about, you should go back and do yesterday's lesson for more detail, but about going intervallically, counting lines and spaces to find out what the notes actually are. So now you've got the treble clef, the bass clef, the sharps, flats, the rhythms of whole notes, half notes, and quarter notes. And if there's a lesson tomorrow and there's no baby, then we'll go into the eighth notes and some other things about how to transcribe better. But that seems like a lot to do. And your assignment is to take any song that you know, any song at all. The simpler, the better. Mary Had a Little Lamb, or any nursery rhyme, and something you know how to play, but you don't have music for already. And then to try playing it, counting it out, and then putting those notes on the lines and spaces of the treble and or bass clef. And then feel free to send that in to me, and I will take a look at it. If it's really a really common one, if it's London Bridge is falling down or something like that, then that's fine. If it's something I wouldn't know, then either sing it to me without playing it, or send me a recording, I guess, of it, so I have something to match it up against, so I know whether you did it correctly or not. But then I'll show you all of that. I'll give you all of your answers and see if you did it right or not. And then the assignment would be to go back and do another one, and then another one. And the more you write out this stuff, as we said yesterday, the much better you're going to be at also reading the stuff. So when you see a piece of music, if you've done a lot of writing of the music, you'll also be way, way faster at reading it. Just like reading and writing is definitely like, if you practice writing stuff, like language, then you're also a much better reader in most cases. So this stuff definitely goes back and forth, writing and reading. And so that, I believe, is it. Until next time, whenever next time is, good luck. Have fun. I love you. Thanks for showing up. Talk to you later.